皆さん、こんにちは。
Hello,
新技術グロー
I'm
バルコンサ
Shigeru
ルティング
Narita
の
from
成田です。
Shingijutsu Global
今
Consulting.
回は
This
改善
time,
の
I'll
デー
talk
タ手
about
法につ
Kaizen
いて
Visual
お話
Tools.
しいたします。皆さんは
When you
改善
start
を始
doing
めるとき、
Kaizen
ま
activities,
ず
first,
改善
you
対
start
象
by
の工
understanding
程
the current
業
state
務の
of the
現状を
targeted
把握して
processes and work,
問題
then
点を
finding
見つけること
problem
から
areas.
そして
Then,
調べた情
reflect the
報を
information you
図
find
表な
in
ど
the
に
various tools
書
of
き表
charts and
します。
diagrams.
その
The
見える化
value
する
stream
道
map
具の一つとし
is
て
one of the tools
バリ
for
ューストリームマップが
visualization,
あり、
and
皆さ
many
ん
of you
は
may
すでに
already be using it.
活用していることと思います。
There are
今
various
回
types
は
of
いろい
Kaizen
ろある
visual tools,
改善
and
見
I'll
える
talk
化
about the
機能の特
characteristic
徴と
and
その
usage
使い
of
方につい
these.
てお話しいたします。
In
改善
many
活動の
cases, the
初め
first
の段
steps of
階では
Kaizen
一
activities
つ一
are
つの
specific
工
activities
程で
created
改
on the
善を行
spot
う
for
いわゆ
each
る
process.
洗脳活動が多いですが、
However, as the Kaizen
改善活
activities
動が増えると
progress,
さら
there will
に
be a
改善
need to
効果を
expand the scope of
出すために
activities
範囲を
toward the
広げ、
entire
原
process,
材料か
from
ら
getting
製
raw
品
materials
それ
toward
から
the
完成
finished
するまで
products
全
in
ての
order to
工
get
程を
excellent
ドルー
results.
で改善活動を行うニーズが出てきます。そのため
These
の
visual
改善
tools
の道
are
具と
very
して
useful
工程
as
全
Kaizen
体を
tools
捉
for
えるために
understanding the
見え
whole
る化
process.
図表は非常に役に立ちます。
There are
これに
several
は
types of
いく
these
つも
kind
の
of
種
tools,
類があり、
and I will talk
バリ
about
ューストリ
9
ームマップをは
tools
じめ
and their
その
specific
他どのそ
characteristics
の
and their usage.
図表について
I will
今回
include the
は
value
その
stream
特
map,
徴と
which
使い
illustrates
方
the
を説明い
material
たし
and
ます。
information flow of the process.
まずバリューストリームマップについて
Starting
お
with the
話ししま
value
す。
stream map.
この表は
This
仕入れ先か
diagram
ら
shows the
納入された
material
原材
and
料から
information flow of the
すべて
raw
の工程
materials
を
being
経て
received
完
from the
成品、
supplier,
そ
then
してお
proceeding
客様
through
に
all of
納
the
入するまでの
processes,
ものの
and
流れ
finally
と
the finished
情報
products
の
to be
流れを
delivered
表
to
し
the
た表です。
customer.
最初に仕入れ先、
First,
工程、
write down
納
the
入先を
suppliers,
記入します。
processes, and delivery destination.
次に物の流れ
Write
を記
down
入
the
します。
material flow next.
そして情報の流れを記
Then,
入します。
write down the information flow.
各工程の
Write
付加価
down
値
the
の時
amount
間、
of time of
物の
added
停
value
滞時
at
間を
each
線
process,
上に
and
記入
material
し、
queue time
合計
on
の
the
リー
straight
ドタイ
line,
ムを記入し
then
ます。
add to the total lead time.
そして
Then
問題点
display
を
the
スター
problems
バース
within the
トで表示
starburst
します。
symbol.
ポイント
The
は
key point
物の
is
流
to
れ
check
と
the
生
material
産情
and
報の
product
流れを
information flow
現
at
地
the
現
actual
実で
site
確
and
認し
write those down.
書くことです。工程
Make
間の
sure
置き
to
場
check
が
that the
スー
storage
パー
between
マーケットのよ
processes
うに
is
管
managed
理
by
さ
a
れた置き場
system
であっ
like
たのか、
supermarket,
ただの一
or
時置
else
き場
it
であっ
is
た
just
の
like
か
a
を確
temporary
認することで
storage.
す。この
The
バリューストリームマ
characteristic
ップ
of the
の特
value
徴
stream
は
map is
全
able to
体から見
understand the
たもの
material
の情
and
報の流
information
れ、
flows.
付加価値時間と
Also,
停
the
滞時
added
間
value times and queue
が
times of
各
each
工程
process
ご
are
とに
displayed
数値化し
numerically
て
so
分
that
か
they
る
are
ことです
easily observed. During Kaizen
使い方とし
activities,
ては
create one that shows the
現
current
状の
state
姿か
followed by
ら
one
あるべ
showing
き
the
姿
ideal
を描
state.
き、
The
改
map
善を
is
進
used
め
to
るた
solve
め
the
にスタ
problems
ーバ
shown
ー
in
ス
the
トで
starburst symbols,
表した
get
問
rid of
題
the
点を
stagnation
改
of
善し、
material and
リードタイ
information
ムを
flow,
短
and
縮
reduce
するた
lead
めに
time.
使います。次は工場内物
Next,
の
I'll
流れ
talk
につ
about the
いてお
material
話しし
flow
ます。
chart.
これは工場内のレイアウ
The
ト上に
material flow in the
物の
factory
流れを
is
工程の始め
represented
か
in
ら
this diagram
部品
by
置き場も
arrows
含め
that show the
最終工
sequence
程
from
ま
the
で
beginning of
製
the
品が
process
できる
to the
順序に
final
従って
process,
矢
including
印
the
で
parts
書き表し
storage.
たものです。製品の種類が
Use
複数ある場
arrows
合
of
は
different colors
線の
when
色
there
な
are
どを
several
変えて
product
書き
types.
表します。特徴として
Since
は
all of the material
工場の
flows
レ
are
イアウト上
represented
に
within the
実
factory
際の
layout,
物の
it
流
is
れを
easy
描く
to
ので
imagine the flow
物
realistically.
の流れがイメージしやすく
This makes it
物の
easier
流
to see
れの無駄
muda,
が分か
waste
り
in
や
the
すいこ
flows,
と、
and you will
実
understand the
際の
entire
工程の
scope
大
of
き
the
さ、
processes and
運搬距離が
transportation
分かることで
distances.
す。使い方と
It's
して
used to make improvements
は
to the
物の流れの整
transportation,
流化、
rethink
工
the
程順
layout
レイ
and
アウトの
sequence
追
of the
求、
processes
運搬
to
の
streamline
改
the
善に使い
material
ます。
flow.
次は製品別の流れ
Next, I'll
線
talk
図に
about
ついて
flow
お
chart by
話しします。
product.
これは工場で複数の
This
製品
diagram
を
shows the multiple
いろい
products
ろ
in the
な工
factory
程を使って
and the
生産
various
しているときに
processes each
ど
product
の
goes
工程
through,
を経て
with the
完成
sequence
させ
represented
てい
by
る
a
かを工程
horizontal
順に
line.
線で結んだものです。
The processes are shown across the top, and the products are shown in the first column. The process flow is connected with a timeline. The characteristic of this chart is to be able to see the process flow for each product, and it can be used to double-check that the flows are streamlined. It is used for improving bottlenecked processes and streamlining the manufacturing of products. Next is the process analysis table. This table has headings for process types of process, transport, pile-up, and inspection. Each row shows a process, with columns for the description, distance, and time. The process flow is easy to see by following the lines connecting each process type symbol between rows. This chart helps to understand the sequence of processes, the distance to the next process, the process time, and the category of process, processing, transport, pile-up, inspection at a glance. This table is used to make processes more efficient by following for the practice of ECRS, which is a fundamental Kaizen principle. Check each process using ECRS, which stands for Eliminate Unnecessary Work, Combine Work, Rearrange Work Sequence, and Simplify Work. Next is the process flow chart. This chart shows the workflow across departments. Relevant department names are shown in the left column, and the timeline of the process is in the header. Work is indicated by a box, and the flow of work is represented by an arrow, and the lead time of the entire work can be seen at a glance. This shows the workflow of each department, from getting an order from the customer to receiving the payment. Write down the actual phone calls, documents, and emails, and document any problems inside a starburst symbol so people can see where improvements are needed. The characteristic of this chart is to be able to understand the overall picture of the workflow with timeline and the related departments within one chart. The chart is used to improve problematic work, get the workflow better, and reduce lead times. Next is the parts tree diagram. This illustrated the parts of the products in the sequence of production. It looks like a cause analysis fishbone chart, so we call this the parts fishbone. The backbone is the main assembly line, and the rib branch lines show the supplied parts with nothing left out. The characteristic of this diagram is to be able to recognize the shape and quantity of each part by displaying pictures or photos of parts that represent actual parts. It is used in the production preparation stage of a new product to determine what type of production line to use, where to supply the parts, how to build sublines, and how to synchronize the processes. Next is the process at a glance chart. Across the top is a number sequence of the steps for an operation or manufacturing a product from start to finish. On the right side, there is a list of details for each task, including an image of the work, description, location, worker, quality check method, working time, and equipment. The characteristic of this diagram is an easy-to-understand visualization of the entire process by work sequence. Also, it shows the necessary quality check methods and equipment. It is used for lead time reduction by finding muda, waste from observing the whole diagram, such as reducing steps using ECRS, which is the 4 principle of Kaizen, and eliminating wasteful work, It is also useful for process design in the production preparation of a new product. Next is the logistics map. This map shows a relative distance of the locations of suppliers. Put the delivery destination at the center of the diagram, then each supplier is placed around on a radius in accordance with the transportation distance. Then details such as transportation time, distance, and freight volume are written into table for each supplier. This map lets you see at a glance, for each of the suppliers, the relative location and distance of the suppliers. It is used for examining the intermediary stopovers, milk run, and mixed load at departure for the efficiency of transportation. It is important to plot the suppliers on an actual map to double-check the whole picture of logistics. Next, I'll talk about the delivery schedule table. The departure location and each of the suppliers are shown in the front column, and time is on the top row. This example shows when a truck departs, driving hours to reach each destination, and then the unloading and loading hours. The characteristics of this diagram is to be able to see the transportation route and transit time. It is used for examining a new transportation route or improvements for an existing transportation route. And finally, here's a summary. The first point is to start doing visualization. Please visualize the current state. These charts and diagrams I have showed today are effective tools for that. The second point is to fully understand these visual tools I have talked about and then use them in accordance with the targeted process and work you are trying to improve. I mainly showed their usage for manufacturing processes at this time, but you can use them for processes in management offices and service industries. Lastly, you should be aware of the next point when these visual tools are being created. They need to be made strictly based on the actual places, actual things, and based on actual facts. Using the 3 Gens principles is the ironclad rule. Otherwise, the Kaizen may head in the wrong direction because an accurate understanding of the current state is not realized if it is based on older data or information heard from others. Let's work on Kaizen activities using these Kaizen visual tools.